So today we are going to learn about conditional statements. This is section 2.2. A conditional statement is a statement that can be written in the form if P then Q. A lot of times you'll hear it in if then form. And another way that you can write that is P, and then you have an arrow to Q. And what that means is P implies Q. Okay, now the hypothesis is the first part of the conditional statement. That is going to be the part of the statement that follows the word if. You do not include if in the hypothesis. Okay, what do you not include in the hypothesis? If. So if is not included. Okay, and that's the part of P following the word if. The second part is the conclusion. Okay, so the conclusion is part Q. Hypothesis is part P, conclusion is part Q. This is going to be the part of the statement that's following the word then. So are we going to include then in our conclusion? No. Okay, so if and then will not be part of those statements. Okay, so P is called what? P is the hypothesis. Q is called the conclusion. Okay, so you have P and then you have Q. We can also represent this using a Venn diagram. Okay, so if P happens, Q happens. Okay, so what you have is you have a large circle here, and P is inside the circle Q. Okay, so if P is going to happen, Q is also going to happen. If we know that P is true, we know that Q is true. Okay, so in the Venn diagram, because P is located inside of Q, we know if P happens, then Q happens. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to identify the hypothesis and conclusion of each conditional. I want you to see if you can highlight the hypothesis. And if you have a different color highlighter, use a different color to highlight the conclusion. Okay, you can also underline if you don't have a highlighter. So you can underline once for the hypothesis, underline twice for the conclusion. All right, so Chloe, what are you thinking about for the first one? What's going to be our hypothesis there?
I said today is Thanksgiving Day.
Good. Okay, so today is Thanksgiving Day. That is your hypothesis. Notice that we did not include if. Okay, your conclusion should be today is Thursday. Okay, so do you see how that is going to be a true statement? Is Thanksgiving ever not on a Thursday? No, right? So if it is Thanksgiving, then it is going to be a Thursday, right?
Because it's every third Thursday. That's the holiday, every third Thursday of November. I am the smart.
All right, now for B, this one's a little bit different. Again, remember that your hypothesis is following the word if. So when you read that statement, see if you can find where if is, because this one's set up a little bit differently. So many times your hypothesis is going to come first. In this one, it actually comes second. So it says if it is an integer. So it is an integer is the hypothesis. and then your conclusion is a number is a rational number. Okay, so if it doesn't have the then part, you don't have to worry about excluding it. And sometimes you will have your hypothesis written towards the end of your statement. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to write a conditional statement from each of the following. So our conditional statement is going to have an if and a then in it. So for part A, it says an obtuse triangle has exactly one obtuse angle. Okay, an obtuse triangle has exactly one obtuse angle. I'm going to do the first one for you. So one way we could say this is if a triangle is obtuse, then it has one obtuse angle. If a triangle is obtuse, then it has exactly one obtuse angle. Now see how I added in my if and my then? So I added if and then into it. What else did I kind of add that wasn't really in there? The what? Oh yeah, you're separated with a comma. Did it say this part, the triangle part? This part, no. So you're telling me what is obtuse, right? An obtuse triangle, if a triangle is obtuse, then it has exactly one obtuse angle. Okay? Alright, I'm going to have you try B. And B is a Venn diagram. Okay, so B is a Venn diagram. You have a large circle that says birds. And then you have a smaller, well, I guess I should say oval, a smaller oval that says blue jays. Okay, so write down that first. Okay, and then see if you can write an if-then statement from your Venn diagram. Let's also classify, what are birds?
Flying animals.
Okay, they're animals, right? Okay, so you might have to use the word animal in your statement. This one's a little bit harder, right? Okay, so when you're writing this, which part is going to go with if? The blue jays or the birds? The blue jays, okay, because the blue jays are on the inside. So we could say if an animal is a blue jay, then it is a bird. Okay, so before, see how I said if a triangle, because we were talking about triangles? Now we're talking about animals. So if an animal is a blue jay, then it is a bird. And isn't that true? If it's a blue jay, isn't it a bird?
If we paint JetBlue, if we paint JetBlue, is he a bird?
No!
Yes, can fly.
Alright, let's go to the next one.
Penguins fly. Yeah, but they have wings.
I have wings. Yeah.
I don't think you're classified as an animal though, are you?
What?
Truth value. The truth value.
The truth. Right, so a conditional statement has a truth value. So that just means that it could be true or it could be false. It is false only when the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. Okay, so I'll say that again, that's important. It is false only when the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false.
Because there's no.
That's really similar to what we used when we were finding what? The counter example, right? Remember for the counter example? Okay, so this says if I get paid, I will take you to a movie. So that's just an example of a conditional statement. To show that a conditional statement is false, you need to find only one counterexample where the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. Okay, so if we wanted to find a counterexample of when that would be false, we'll say that's about your parents, okay? So if they get paid, then they're gonna take you to a movie. Every time they get paid, do they take you to a movie? No, so you would just have to name one time where your mom or dad got paid, but they did not take you to a movie. That's good.
Just check.
Okay, so determine if each conditional is true. If it's false, then you're going to give a counterexample. I'm going to read you A, and then I want you to think about what your answer is going to be for that. So if this month is August, then the next month is September. So you're just going to write down if that's true or false. If it's true, you don't have to write anything else. If it's false, you have to give me a counterexample. Okay, what do we think for the first one? Is that true or false? True. So if it is August, is the next month ever anything besides September? No. Okay, so that's going to be true. All right, let's try the next one. If two angles are acute, then they are congruent. Okay, so true or false?
False.
And then if it's false, you got to show me a counterexample. Okay, so don't just write down two angles and not label them. So what you're trying to find two angles that are acute but are not congruent. Okay, a possible counterexample is 80 degrees and 30 degrees. Are both of those acute? Yeah, they're both less than 90. Are they congruent? No. Okay, so any two measures you choose are fine as long as they are acute and they cannot be the same. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is a negation. Okay, so the negation of a statement of P, which we would just say is not P, is written as, and then this kind of looks like a little squiggle or like your approximate symbol. Okay, and that is going to mean not P. If you negate a true statement, it is false. And if you negate a false statement, it is true. So it's very similar to the opposite. Okay, if you negate a true statement, then that would be false. And if you negate a false statement, that would be true. The next chart that we're going to fill out is going to be very important. So far we've only been talking about the conditional statements. There are actually more than just the conditional statements, and that's what we're going to learn about next. So a conditional is a statement that can be written in the form if P, then Q. Your symbol for the conditional is P and then your arrow to Q. That means if P, then Q. And then I just wrote that on the side. If P, then Q. Now, there's also something called the converse of the statement. And the converse is formed by exchanging the hypothesis and the conclusion. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that part. So it's formed by exchanging the hypothesis and conclusion. So basically what happens is the hypothesis and the conclusion are just going to switch places. So before we had if P then Q. For the converse, you're going to have if Q then P. Okay, so I want you to write that on the side. So if Q then P. Okay, the next statement is the inverse. And the inverse is formed by negating the hypothesis and the conclusion. Okay, so if you negate the hypothesis and conclusion, we would say that's if not P, then not Q. Okay, if not P, then not Q. And then the last one is called the contrapositive. The contrapositive is the statement formed by both exchanging and negating the hypothesis and conclusion. So not only do you flip them around, you also negate both of them. So that would be if not Q, then not P. The contrapositive and the converse, you can see, have the same order of Q and P. The only difference is the contrapositive is going to be negated. All right, let's flip it to the back. So, for our example, we're going to write the converse, inverse, and the contrapositive of the conditional statement. If an animal is a cat, then it has 4 paws. Then we're going to find the truth value of each. Okay, so we already have the conditional that is given to you. Okay, so you were already given the conditional statement. Okay, your conditional statement, if an animal is a cat, then it has 4 paws. So what I did first is I identified my P and my Q. Okay, so this is my conditional statement. My P value is an animal is a cat. Notice I did not include if. My Q value is going to be it has 4 paws. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to write the converse. If you're feeling comfortable with that and you want to try the inverse and contrapositive, you can. Okay, I'm going to give you a few seconds to do the first one, then we'll go over it to make sure you got it right. All right? us what the converse is? Not the actual sentence, but the definition. What does the converse do?
The stated form by exchanging a hypothesis and a conclusion.
Okay, so in your own words, what do you do? Okay, flip what specifically?
Put the conclusion in the hypothesis, and the hypothesis with the conclusion.
Good, okay, so you're gonna put the hypothesis where the conclusion was, and then vice versa, right? So, Avery, you wanna tell me what you wrote for yours?
If it has four paws, then it is a cat.
Okay, so if it has four paws, then it is a cat. That would be okay. I only said okay because you said it twice.
If
You should have somewhere that it's a what?
it's an animal,
Yes. Now,
if it's an animal with four paws,
that
It has four paws
then it is an animal cat.
If the animal
and the animal cat.
if it has four paws, then the animal is a cat. Is that true or false? What do you guys think? False. If it has four paws, does it have to be a cat? No.
I love animal cats.
Yeah. All right. So I wrote mine a little bit differently. So we're gonna talk about that. So mine says, if an animal has four paws, then it is a cat. So instead of writing at the end, then the animal is a cat, I put that at the beginning so I could just say it here. Do you guys know why that would be the correct way to state it in the English language?
Because it could be anything.
Because
Yeah,
it's a pronoun.
it is a pronoun, and what is an animal? What's that called?
Noun.
Well, it's the modifier, right? So if you start off with it, right, we don't know what it is. You should have your modifier first. If an animal has four paws, then it is a cat. I'm not going to be super picky about that, but you do have to say the animal in one of those places. Okay, so you can either say it first. If an animal has four paws, then it is a cat. Or if you said, if it has four paws, then an animal is a cat, I would be fine with that as well. All right, let's try the next one. So the next one that we're going to find is the inverse. And Jared, what is the inverse? How do we make that statement?
It's the statement formed by negating the hypothesis and conclusion.
Okay, so when you're negating it, what does that mean?
Means you're saying like the opposite of what it is.
Okay, so what did you say for your inverse?
I said if an animal is not a cat, then it does not have four paws.
Okay, so really, what's the only word you added in there?
Not.
Not. So a lot of times when we're using English, when we're, like this one's about an animal, we are just going to go ahead and put the not in there. Other times when we have mathematical symbols, we might have like a not equals, but you could just put the equals and then put the slash through it. That would be fine. Okay, so if an animal is not a cat, then it does not have four paws. I said that was false. Can you guys give me a counterexample? So if an animal is not a cat, then it does not have four paws. Yeah, Ross. Okay, a dog. So a dog is not a cat, correct? But does it have four paws?
Yes. Unless it lost a leg.
Dog
Then
in
the
Spanish
paw's out there
class.
somewhere, right?
Dog in Spanish class. That's no problem.
All right, let's do the contrapositive. Caitlin, will you tell me what the contrapositive is in words? The definition. Okay, good. So you're gonna flip it and you're gonna negate it, make it the opposite. And Caitlin, what did you say for that one?
I said if an animal doesn't have four paws, then it is a cat.
Good. Right? If an animal does not have four paws, then it is not a cat. Yeah, so for that, it's going to be true. When we're doing these types of statements, we're not taking into account, I guess you could say, special cases. Because I know you guys are asking me about, like, amputees, right? Well, at one time, did it have four paws? Most likely.
Maybe it came out of the womb.
Maybe.
Mom, where's my leg? I hate it.
All on the truth values, there are certain patterns that are going to happen with the different types of statements. And related conditional statements that have the same truth value, we call logically equivalent statements. Okay, so they're logically equivalent. And equivalent is just another way to say what?
Equal.
Equal or the same, right? Okay, so logically equivalent statements are formed when they have the same truth value. Now you can see that the only one that we wrote that was true was the contrapositive. The other statement that was true was the initial statement. And what do we call the initial statement?
Oh,
The conditional. Conditional. Okay, so the conditional and the contrapositive are logically equivalent. So let's talk about what that means. That means if the conditional is true, then the contrapositive is going to be what?
Also true.
Also true. Okay? If the contrapositive is false, then the conditional is
Also false.
also false. So they're going to have the same truth value. Which other two do you guys think will make a conjecture? Right? What other two? The inverse and the converse. Do you think that those are logically equivalent?
yes.
Yes, they are. So a converse and its inverse are logically equivalent. So if the converse is true, the inverse is true. If the converse is false, the inverse is false. Now, I highlighted this note because this is important too. So the converse of a true conditional is not necessarily false. So you could have all four of those statements be true, or all four of them could be false. It just depends on the statement. So in this one, see how we had two statements that were true and two that were false? That doesn't have to happen. All of them could be true, and all of them could be false. It honestly just depends on what statement that you have. Okay, which you guys will figure out as you're working on your homework. So your homework for today is a worksheet. So I'm going to give that to you.